Ladies and gentlemen, the American band, Grand Funk Pharaoh.
You look good, man.
Oh, well, thank you.
How you feeling? How's everything?
I feel pretty good. I feel we're doing our 45 shows this year and keeping busy and we just keep rolling.
45 shows a year.
Yeah, that's that anymore. That's not a lot. I mean, so we just did a show with 38 Special a few weeks ago. They're doing like 100 or 120. I said, oh my God, no way.
How do you keep yourself in shape? Because being a drummer is not an easy task.
Yeah,
Plus you're singing.
I work at it. I get up and walk 3 miles every day, and then I go to the gym every afternoon, and I try to watch what I eat, and I try not to drink too much alcohol.
Well, let's talk a little bit about you guys now. You've got some pretty high-powered musicians working with you. Of course, you're with Mel. You've been with Mel for
Mel,
decades. Let's talk about your relationship with Mel over all these years.
Well, Mel's my brother. It's we've been together so long. It's we know what the other one's going to do before we do it. And so it's just one of those kind of relationships. And we've been through everything, ups and downs, and in the middle, and you name it, we've been there. So we're good brothers. We really are.
What about the guys that you've got working for you now? We're working with you, actually.
Well,
sorry.
Some of these guys have been with us for 25 years. Yeah. Max Carl from 38 Special. Max is the guy that sang and wrote 38's biggest hit, Second Chance. And I ran into Max through a friend of a friend, and when we were looking for a singer, I listened to what Max was doing on his solo stuff, and I went, man, this guy'd be beautiful for it. So he's been with us for 25 years. Tim Cashin from Bob Seger's band is playing keyboards and singing backup with us, and he's been with us for 25 years as well. Mark Chatfield is our new guy. I like to say, I've known him for 45 years. I produced his first album. It was The Gods, Godz, and Mark is a good friend of ours, and he's also been with Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band. He played with them for about 30 years. So it's a bunch of veterans, but we're all close friends. That kind of a thing. Yeah.
You guys came from what became a hotbed of rock and roll music, MC5, Grand Funk, Bob Seger, and on and on and on. And plus the Motown sound,
And the Motown, that's what we learned from, was the Motown, really. Yeah.
How so?
Well, when we came up, we were big R&B fans, and Motown was just down the road. So everybody was into the Temptations and the Four Tops and the Supremes, and you'd go to all of the dances, and all of the sock hops and the teen things. And you were doing line dances to all of the great Motown music. And, and we were always admiring the singers. The singers were just, so awesome. And so when we came up, we were big R&B fans, and Grand Funk, being just up the road from Detroit, being in Flint, new music was starting in the late 60s, with Cream and Hendrix and this new souped up blues kind of stuff. And we went, well, let's do something like that. Let's put together a power trio, but we're going to do R&B. And we'll just put R&B on steroids instead of blues. And that's
Inside Looking Out.
Yeah, Inside Looking Out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
all that stuff. So that was our formula. I mean, we even did a cover later on to Some Kind of Wonderful. It was originally done by the Soul Brothers 6, and I remember in Flint listening to that on WAMM. Wham was the local black radio station, and we just loved that stuff. It was just that's what we loved. Yeah.
Talk a little bit about the power trio concept. You guys were going to have, I believe, 4 or 5 piece, and then you just decided, let's do a 3-piece.
No, it was to fashion it after Cream and Hendrix and Blue Cheer. Those were what were happening in 1967, 68. And so when we wanted to start this new band, we had been a 4-piece before and a 5-piece as the Pack, and Terry Knight in the Pack. And we wanted to make a statement, we got to come up with something new. And so we did the power trio thing, and that was it. We came up with a great name, Grand Funk Railroad, which represented the Grand Trunk and Western Railroad, which ran through Flint, Michigan. That's what we we would grow up, as we were growing up, we'd always sit at these crossings watching all these cars go by, Grand Trunk and Western, Grand Trunk and Western. And in 68, a new term for music, funk, came up. And so we did a play on words, Grand Funk Railroad. It was risque back then. Everybody thought we were saying the other four-letter
Right,
word.
right.
So, what's your band's name? Oh, Grand Funk Railroad. What did you say? So,
After you released On Time, the first album,
yeah.
were you surprised that it did so well?
Well, yeah. I mean, because it just kind of it didn't do as well as it did later. It kind of came
right.
around later. When we put out the Red album and Closer to Home, then On Time came along with it. But it got us our first hit. It was Time Machine. It got us on the radio, and it got us noticed. So and we kind of were making a statement with that first record of doing all original material. That was our thing. We weren't going to be a cover band anymore. We were going to do original material. So that was our deal.
You look at you guys were putting out 2 albums every year and plus touring. How did you do that without, killing each other or getting burned out?
Well, we did get burned out in 1976 after we'd done it for 7 years, but we were under contract. That's the way the record companies did things back then, is they would sign you to a deal. And the only way you could sign a deal was you had to agree to do 2 tours and 2 albums every year. That's what we did. So, we were in the studio, we'd get off the studio, we'd rehearse for a week, go on the road, do 40 shows, come off the road, take a week off, go back in the studio. That was our thing, yeah.
Out on the road for 40 days.
Yeah, that's where
there's a 5-letter city that you're going to be coming to at the end of the month, mentioned in that song that you wrote.
Yeah, I know that one, Omaha. Sure.
How did that come about? I think I was at that show, to tell you the truth. How did you come up with that whole concept?
What, with the American? It was,
with the American band.
We were being sued by our former manager, Terry Knight, who we discovered after 3 years, 69, 70, 71, going into 72, we discovered that we'd signed bad contracts with our bad manager, and he was taking all the money. And we were just kids. We didn't realize what was going on.
That seems kind of common at the time. Badfinger is a classic example of that.
So, we fired him. And of course, he turned around and sued us for the name and all this kind of stuff. And so he had all the money. We were broke. And radio had changed in 1969 to 1972. It changed from being FM underground to being FM hit format, So all of the songs had to be 3 minutes and 30 seconds long. You couldn't do, any more I'm Your Captain, Closer to Home and that kind of stuff, or Inside Looking Out. It had to be, commercial stuff. So I started doing some more writing, and we enlisted Todd Rundgren to help us to make this transition to be compatible with FM hit radio format, And we were flying around from town to town. Terry Knight was suing every city we were playing in as we were landing. And I remember flying in over one town. I can't remember what it was. I looked down and the thought came to my head, we're coming to your town. We'll help you party it down. And so I went, I got to write a song around that, and that's where that's where the song came from, really. And the Sweet Sweet Connie and Little Rock and 4 Young Chiquitas in Omaha and Up All Night Playing Poker with Freddie King. I got to tell you, poker's his thing. All of that stuff kind of went into my lyrics. And then, the tag came up with, it wasn't flag waving. It was just like I kept going over the song, couldn't come up with a tag for it. And one time I just came out, we're an American band. And it sang well. I mean, it came off my mouth good.
And it took a #1 spot.
That was it.
That was your first #1 hit as a band.
Yeah.
Were you surprised at that?
Oh, absolutely. I remember being in the studio in Miami, and Capitol Records was, chomping at the bit. They wanted to get this new record out after we'd left Terry, and all this publicity was flying around it, and they wanted to get this new record out. And we had just finished recording that song. Some of the people from Capitol were there to hear some of the playback, and I'm out in the studio, and they're in the playback. And I could see them through the windows, as we're playing the song, and they're jumping up and down. They're just going crazy. And I went in and I went, you mean you guys really like that? Yeah, that's a hit. That's a hit. So, yeah, I mean, I didn't realize it, but I realized it when I heard it on the radio in my car for the first time. When I heard it on the radio, it was like, that sounds like a hit record.
To talk about how you came up with the intro to that, the drum
Well,
intro.
it was the cowbell and the drum intro, and I was always kind of known for doing a lot of stuff with my foot, and so that lick came from doing the foot lick, and it was trying to kind of replicate the sound of a Harley, sounds like a Harley Davidson, And of course, with the cowbell, every hit song has to have a cowbell. So,
when you guys added Craig Frost,
yeah,
that was kind of a big change too, because you not only had Todd Rundgren working for you, the wizard and true star himself, but you added Craig Frost around the same time, and that kind of changed your sound overall too. Did it open more doors for you on what you wanted to do?
Well, we were trying to make a change. We were the power trio from 1969 to 1972, and so we were looking to make a change. And this thing with radio was changing, so we wanted to make a complete change from the FM underground Grand Funk Railroad to the hit format Grand Funk Railroad. Sure. And we wanted and while we were Grand Funk the trio, we'd always kind of missed out live having that extra guy, whether it was a rhythm guitar or a keyboard or something. When you're playing live, you don't have overdubs, and in the studio we could get away with it because you could overdub a rhythm guitar, you could overdub a keyboard, but you can't do that, live. So we wanted to add a fourth guy, and Craig was a former member of the Pack, and he kind of missed out on the Grand Funk thing when we first hit, and so we invited Craig to come in and hey, come on, Craig, it's come on in here, Yeah.
And then you guys worked again together with Bob Seger.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a nice deal, right?
Yeah, it was kind of a swap. I got him a gig with Grand Funk. He got me a gig with Seger. So yeah.
You guys sold out Shea Stadium in '72, I believe it was, faster than the Beatles.
Faster than the Beatles.
How do you do that? I mean, I mean, obviously you were very popular.
Yeah, and I think I like to, the pessimistic side of me likes to go, well, they got their ticket selling process together. I mean, look at how fast stuff sells out now, instantaneously because of the internet, And back then, things it would take weeks or months, to sell out, big venues back then. And I think, they got their ticket selling process together. Plus, we were just that big at that time. I mean, it was that a moment in time. We had a full block long billboard in Times Square that had never been used for music before. It was just us with our three faces, and so, I mean, there was a lot of scuttlebutt about Grand Funk Railroad,
You guys were not well received by the critics originally.
Yeah.
But the fans loved you.
To hell with
loved your live shows so much that you put out 2 live double albums pretty quick together.
To heck with the critics.
The critics aren't buying the albums, right?
Yeah. I'll never forget playing Madison Square Garden. I think it was maybe the first or the second time. And I read the review the next day from Rolling Stone magazine. And the guy just smashed us. And I read it and I went, I don't think this guy was even at the show. If he was at the show, there's no way he could write what he wrote, it just because it didn't come off that way, so it was just prejudice. There was a war going on between our former manager, Terry Knight, and the press, and Terry liked to say, oh, you can't talk to Don, you can't talk to Mel, you can't talk to the band, you got to talk to me, so he liked to build up this facade that we were kind of like this manufactured band by him and everything was him. And so the critics hated that. They really did. And I do remember when we played Madison Square Garden again as the new 4-piece after the record produced by Todd Rundgren, the guy from Rolling Stone, a different guy, came and he reviewed the show and gave us a rave review. So the only difference was Terry Knight wasn't there anymore. So there you go.
I read somewhere that there was one album where you were really dissatisfied with how your drums sounded because they were muted or towels were put over your heads.
that was Survival, Terry.
Which I think is a wonderful album, to tell you.
It is a great album, but I wasn't happy with the drum sound. Terry was the producer at the time, and he had heard that The Beatles got some of their drum sounds by muting everything down, like I forget which album it was, but let's try that. Let's try that. Oh, because the Beatles are doing it. Let's try it. And it just didn't work. When we got to working with Todd Rundgren, the drum sound to me was like night and day. It was like, oh my God, that's what I want the drums to sound like,
I don't want to dwell on this or anything, but the business side of the music industry, did that catch you by surprise too? Because you had the run-ins with Terry, obviously, as after time, you guys and Mark had a falling out. Did that surprise you at all?
Well, it doesn't surprise me anymore. I mean,
yeah. But at the time, I'm sure it did.
At the time, it was tough. Yeah. I mean, we lost everything, to Terry in those first 3 years, and we settled that dispute basically by becoming a hit band without him, and going on without him. And now here we are. I'm 77 years old and I'm still going. So that settles that dispute.
What can fans expect to hear? All the favorites? Are there any restrictions on what you can and can't play when you play here at the end of the month?
We cover the whole gamut, So it's a foot stomp of music, rock and roll, soul. I'm Your Captain, Closer to Home, Heartbreaker, Shining On, Walk Like a Man, Some Kind of Wonderful, Locomotion. The whole gamut of Grand Funk Railroad hits is in the show. We do a couple of new things, but we know everybody wants to hear the hits. So. Yeah.
What's your favorite album and song?
My favorite album, I always think back on the albums. I go, was it easy or was it hard? And the easy albums to me were the best ones. E Pluribus Funk was one of the greatest Grand Funk albums I think we ever did. We're an American
and a great cover.
And a great, yeah. And We're an American Band was another one. It was easy, Todd came in and made it easy for us. There were no 50 takes, it was like you do 2 or 3 takes and then you do some editing or do some overdubbing and you were done, and you just, it kind of, if the music is there, you don't need to spend 50 takes trying to make a record, it's just, so those are 2 of my favorite albums.
The one that got me hooked was the Red Album.
Yeah, that's a great album.
I just fell in love with that the first time I heard it. I have a brother that was 4 years older than me, and he was playing that all the time, and it just really got me hooked.
The Red Album or Grand Funk and
Right.
Closer to Home are very similar records. There a lot of similar kind of grooves and stuff, between the 2 records.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, what was your favorite song that you didn't write? I know,
Oh,
because I'm sure American Band would be at the
I'm
top
Your
of the
Captain,
list.
Closer to Home is
Really?
for sure. Yeah.
Do,
Great
do, you,
song.
do you find that if you don't play that, then people are going to riot or something, or they're going to
Oh,
be
well,
upset?
it wouldn't be a Grand Funk show without it.
You guys were always high energy when you performed.
Yeah.
Now you're a little bit older. Is it hard to bring that energy every time you play, or do you really just turn on the switch?
We still get excited, I mean, and we want to get the audience up on their feet and having a good time. And it's a little difficult because the audience got old too, I mean, I don't know how that happened, but it's a little more difficult to get them on their feet than it used to be. But it's still high energy, I mean, the music of Grand Funk is very uplifting, I think. And, it's not the kind of stuff that you sit there and you politely applaud, you got to be into it, so. Yeah.
And I think that's what made you guys so popular.
I think so.
That you were one of those bands that you could be walking down the street and hear it out of somebody's garage almost.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we were a garage band, really. Yeah.
You've kind of taken on a persona in a way of wearing some outlandish things when you play.
Yeah, I don't wear much outlandish anymore. Just a black T-shirt is about, that's but yeah, I mean, back in the day we had some costumes, for sure.
And you had something on with the puffy sleeves, looked like you were with Parliament or something.
Yeah,
almost,
yeah. Oh yeah.
How did you play with something like that?
Oh, well, it was, it wasn't that difficult, and that was our transition phase from, when music started going to disco.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't going to go to disco, but we were still trying to do a show that was, along those, lines of glitzy, glamour kind of stuff, so kind of following along that.
Are you guys going to be putting out any new albums?
I don't know if we're going to do a new album. We might do something that's a combination. We've got a lot of stuff over the past 25 years that's come and gone from the show. And we might do a compilation, kind of a thing, but we don't have any desire to go right into the studio and do a new record,
Out on the road for 45 days?
Yeah.
All
For
right,
40
so
45 years, right?
oh, well, yeah. Do you like playing the smaller venues?
I love it.
Why?
I
They're
love
more
playing
intimate?
I love playing the festivals, and I love
Mhm.
playing the smaller venues, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. The audience is right there with you. And some of these theaters are just gorgeous. They're just great place to play. And
Acoustics are
the
okay?
sound is so good in some of them. It's
Yeah.
really, they were designed for music. They really were.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that that you have a good performance when you're here. I'm sure you will. I mean, I've just seen little
Well, I
videos.
understand. I understand this place is pretty cool. The Steel House.
It is. It is
Yeah.
pretty cool. Yeah, and I think the acoustics in there are pretty good. You'll
Yeah.
have a good time.
Good.
Yeah.
Looking
Hey, I
forward to it.
appreciate you taking the time to do a little interview with me.
Well, thank you, Roger. I appreciate it, man.